So I guess I'm supposed to talk about racial profiling, most memorable experience in America. I think I'd go with the first experience. This was in high school. I had only been in America for maybe a year and a half at most. And it was after school, and a bunch of us friends were walking home. The town that I lived in during high school was a weird balance between white and black, because on one side of the town was like straight up hood, so it was a lot of the usual stereotypical black lifestyle. On the other side was the most predominantly Caucasian white town, so the black people in my town were more affiliated with the hood side, and the white people in my town were more affiliated with the other side. So it's almost like a melting pot of sorts where things didn't really completely melt, but we all had to be in the same school. So that's kind of like the background. And so of course that gave cops the grounds to be easily selective, because the stereotypes were very prevalent. So after school was a bunch of us walking together, maybe 15, 20, 30 black kids walking together after high school. Was a bunch of us. I think it was the last day of school or something of that nature. So while we were walking, we decided to stop at a Chinese food place to get Chinese. So as we were stopping, I was like, and I pointed out to my friends, like, hey, have you guys noticed how since we've been walking, it seems like the same 3 or 4 cop cars keep surrounding every block. So there are different blocks. As we get to each block, that's the same block that we see the same cops kind of walking and coming back and around each time around. So I mentioned that, and they were like, no, we've not been paying attention. So once we stopped to get food, we all started kind of looking out for it. And so as we were looking, lo and behold, the same cop that passed 5 minutes ago after 3 other cop cars came back around. And each time, of course, they slow down as they drive past us and kind of see what we're up to. So as we're there, I pointed at him. I was like, see, that was the same cop that came back 5 minutes ago when I was telling you guys. And they were like, yes, of course. As soon as I pointed, then he saw that we've seen him. He made a huge U-turn and pulled closer to the curb. And he was like, you, come here. And I was like, me? And I was just standing there, so it couldn't have been me. But he was like, yeah, you, come here. So of course, I walk over there, and his first was, so you got a problem with me? So I'm looking at him like, what would make you think that I have a problem with you? Like, no. He was like, do you have a problem with me? I said, no. I said, well, why were you pointing at me? And I was just pointing out to my friends how it seems like the same 3 or 4 cop cars have been circling every block we've been on for the past 2 miles. It was quite a walk, so it wasn't like a 15-minute span thing. Kind of 30 minutes, the same cop cars. So I was like, yeah, I was just pointing out to my friends how it seems like the same 4 cop cars have been circling the block. Every block that we end up on. That's just all. And he's like, well, this is my effing town. And he actually used the language. This is my effing town. I can do whatever the F I want. Do you have a problem with it? And of course, instantly, I got heated, so I was tempted to respond. But then I realized that his friend, because there was 2 of them sitting in the car, the friend was recording in case I would give them any reason to, I guess, do whatever. So let's say if I got hostile verbally or I got abusive, then, they could say, see, he escalated this. So once I noticed that, because the friend was just kind of holding his microphone or camera or whatever pointed at me and just kind of quietly watching as he keeps looking back and forth at his camera. So once I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't have any problem with you. I'm good. It's like, yeah, that's what I effing thought. This is my effing town. Again, this is a grown adult police speaking to me, a high school kid in that manner. And then I just turned and walked away, and they drove off. Of course, they followed us the whole block till we eventually dispersed. So that was the first time that I was like, that was interesting.
Yeah, so like, how old were you when that happened?
16 at most. Yeah. And I'm not a big guy, so it's not like I'm a big intimidating person. I look younger than my age. So for all he knew, I could have been 14, 13.
What was your realization after that?
It was just like you're treated differently if you're black. Because I think, like, growing up in Africa, of course, we heard, about racism. Like I remember very specific, like a teacher back in Ghana trying to explain kind of like how if you're black you're treated differently in some of these countries. And I remember being like, that's dumb. That's like I had no paradigm for processing that, because of course everybody looked like me, and there was no reason for me to assume that skin was made any difference. So it was just like, oh yeah, that makes no type of sense. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I experienced that, and it's just like, oh, It's those subtle ways.
So like, does that shape the way you move now as you grow up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I see a cop, my first instinct is to stop and almost like analyze everything about myself to see if there's anything that can be misunderstood. And it's almost like instinctual. It could be the smallest cop to the biggest cop to the oldest cop. Just by the fact that they have a badge on, the first instinct is check to make sure that there is nothing that in anybody's eye can be perceived as threatening, as breaking the law, as anything. Yeah. Well, that reminds me of another story. Actually, ooh. Yeah. So this was like maybe a few months after that. It was the last year of school. I grew up in Jersey, so that was when Jersey club music was like the biggest thing, where everybody was dancing all the time. So we would dance at school all the time. It was the last day of school. We brought a boombox. Everything was happy. Everything was fun. So now we were freshmen, which means those in my class just got out of middle school, so they still had good friendships in the middle school with people in the middle school. So we all decided, the high school kids and middle school kids decided to meet up just to kind of hang out as the last day of school before the summer break starts. So we agreed to stop at this pizza place. So of course, we get there before the middle school kids are. We have the boombox playing, everything's cool. One of my boys, Lamar, goes in and talks to the pizza guy like, hey, we're just gonna hang out here for a little bit, if that's fine with you. He was like, yeah, you can stand in front of my store, you can do whatever you want, of course. Yeah. And they know us, we're regular customers there, so it's like, yeah, you guys are perfectly fine hanging out. So cool, we got permission. So of course, and nothing remotely crazy, just us standing around talking, kids dancing, just whatever. So as we're dancing, we see a cop car pull around. It's like, hey, get off the streets, man. And so of course we ignore him. So he drives around, comes back. Yo, I said get off the streets, man. And we're like, oh, we talked to the guy that works there, so he said it's fine. He's like, I don't effing care. I said get off the streets. Okay, that escalated. So of course we ignore him. The whole time he doesn't come out of his car. So I guess he called for backup. So out of nowhere we see maybe 4 or 5 cop cars pull out of nowhere. Of course now he has company. So now he decides to get out of the car. What the F did I tell you, kids? I said get off the effing street. Did I not tell you to get off the street? And we're like, we literally talked to the pizza guy that it's his store, and he said we can stay in here as well. We can stay in here. He's fine with it. He's like, well, this is not his. The pavement is government property. So when I say get off the street, I mean get the F off the street. You got a problem with that? So this grown man, of course, gets directly in the face of my friend that responded. Very, very confrontational on his face. Like, you got a problem with it? Now, of course, high school kids, given the context of, how things are, he got heated. And the friend was ready to make a dumb decision, which we were always, all we're looking like, okay, don't do this. But if you do something, we have to kind of respond. So all hoping that he wouldn't do anything. But eventually we were like, hey, it's okay, it's not worth it, whatever. Now, mind you, maybe 10, 12 feet from us was a group of Caucasian kids standing just as we were, hanging out, doing almost about the same thing as we were. The cop never once addressed them, never once talked to them, never once even looked their direction. They were maybe 10, 15 feet from us, just a separate group from us. But we were the only group that in this whole altercation the cop focused on. After we dispersed, the other kids stood there, did their own thing. Life continued as it always would for them. And there was no interaction as to whether for them to get off the streets or not. So that was like another really clear distinction where it's like, yes, 2 groups standing in the same place, 10, 15 feet from each other, doing about the exact same thing. And yet, there was a clear difference in, how that happened. So, yeah.